And some of those people were eating moldy foods. This moldy foods kept coming up. And then I was like, okay, all right, there's something in this. I kind of got there with it all and realised, okay, right, this is what I need to do, and this is how I'm going to do it.
Hey there. You might have caught Faith Canter's incredible recovery story here on the channel a while back, where she told us how she turned her health battle into this beautiful, meaningful life where she now lives on a sunny farm in Portugal. Well, she's back on the channel, and this time she's diving into the world of supporting your gut health and overall health through fermentation. If you're new here, my name's Raelan, and every week on the channel we share recovery stories and strategies for people who are facing conditions like ME/CFS and long COVID. Faith's journey from ME/CFS to full vibrant health has inspired hundreds on their own paths to recovery. And today, Faith will be sharing her expertise as well as tips and tricks on fermentation, a practice that has become a really important part of regaining her health. And it was an important part of regaining my health as well. So an important topic, an exciting topic that I can't wait to get into. So please join me in welcoming back Faith. Faith, so great to have you back. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to talk about fermenting.
Yes, fermenting is such an exciting and fun topic, and it's been so important to me, so I'm excited to dive in. For people who haven't watched your first video, though, can you give us a sort of quick recap of your health journey that kind of got you into all of this?
Yeah, so I have been recovered from chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, IBS, and a handful of other things for about 11 years, maybe this year it's 12 years. Anyway, somewhere around that time. Prior to that, I was unwell with CFS and the above for 6.5 years. And I was, particularly in the early years, mainly bed-bound, certainly house-bound most of the time. Like everyone else, was having a really crappy time of it for all that time. Yeah, so I did a number of different things over a number of years to become well again. And one of those things was addressing my digestive system. One of the big things, actually, that was a big part of my recovery, was addressing the imbalance in my digestive system and using fermented foods, among a couple of other things, to help with that. And since then, I've become pretty obsessed with it.
Yeah, it was a massive thing in my recovery journey as well. And I could not believe the results that I got from it after spending, I don't know, probably thousands of dollars on probiotic supplements that never really seemed to do anything. I kind of got on the fermenting path and, got a little obsessed for a while as well. But I was telling you before, I've kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit. So I need to get back there. So I'm excited for all of us, myself included, and to learn from the things that you're going to share with us today. But I'm curious what got you onto fermenting specifically.
I was just reading I decided to read a lot of recovery stories about, not just from the illnesses that I had, but anything. And I was noticing that, like most people were addressing gut health, and some of those people were eating these moldy foods. And to start with, I was like, why are they eating moldy foods? And I was quite repulsed by the idea of it. I'd never really thought about sauerkraut. I guess in somewhere over there, it was in the back of my mind, but I didn't really get it at all. And
I feel like we just lost half our viewers at the term moldy foods. I was like, yes. Next.
Yes.
We're really good. Hang in there, I promise. Yes. So much better than we sound.
Yeah, I'm saying it like that because I think probably other people are thinking it as well, particularly anyone that hasn't tried it yet. Thinking like, why would you do this? Why would you eat these sorts of foods? But it kept coming up. I kept reading articles and research and various other things. And like you, I'd spent an absolute fortune. I I don't know how much on supplements and probiotics and things like that, none of which I could tolerate, well, most of which I couldn't tolerate, and most of which didn't seem to actually be doing any good. But then this moldy foods kept coming up, and then I was like, okay, all right, there's something in this, just not just people's personal experience, but even research about it. And by that point I was kind of a bit anti all the research, but even like the research about it and stuff all suggested that this was a really good thing to help to heal the digestive system, eliminate toxins, which was a big thing I was doing at the time as well, and to get loads of probiotics and nutrients in as well. So I was like, okay, I feel so unwell, I'm just going to try, I'm willing to try anything. And I think everybody gets to that stage at some point. They're just like, that's it, I'm done, I'm going to try everything. So that's what I started to do, was started to look at sauerkrauts and kimchis and kombucha. I think they were kind of my main three to start with. But then I was like, some of these don't seem to be as good as some of the others. And what does it mean if it's pasteurized? What does it mean if it's not pasteurized? And it's kind of got sucked into a little rabbit hole of it all for a bit. Not sure what I was doing, or if I was doing it right, or if it was helping me. But then eventually I kind of got there with it all and realised, okay, right, this is what I need to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. And like you, yeah, I was really surprised how much of a difference it made in my life, in my health.
So assuming you're eating the right fermented foods and they are created properly in a way that retains all the benefits, what are the health benefits? Can you explain for people that you can potentially get from eating these moldy foods?
There are so many. I often, I'm writing blogs often that it's like this long of all the benefits, but the main ones, obviously helping to heal the digestive system, putting more nutrients in, and they're also helping us absorb the nutrients from the food we eat them with, as well as the nutrients in them, and also all the good bacteria, probiotics in it as well, which then not only helps the digestive system, but helps our hormones, helps our immune system, helps with mental clarity, helps with mood. It's a big one with mood as well. Skin, hair, nails, allergies, even things like hay fever and stuff. It can help people with. It really can help on almost every level. Hence the obsession.
It was really interesting for me to learn that we have more, like our gut microbiome is made up of trillions of, bacteria and viruses and yeast and all these different things. And a lot of them support us. Some of them don't. Some of them aren't so good. But, we're more bacteria and viruses than we are us. Like there is just a multitude of things that are living inside of us. And I used to also think of probiotics. We hear you need probiotics in your gut to be healthy. So I take these supplements and I didn't really understand it. And I kind of thought of them as these generic little soldiers that you just put in there to help make you healthier. But I didn't realize how much you needed a variety and diversity, and different, fermented foods give you different probiotics. So, and I think a lot of us here all just eat yogurt and you'll be fine. But I came to realize that yogurt gives you a very small amount of this, and it probably isn't going to get you where you're trying to go. So what types of fermented foods do you find are the best, or that you tend to gravitate towards, and why?
For me, I think anything that has a lot of different vegetables in it. So a kimchi that, has a lot of different vegetables in, or a sauerkraut that someone has added, other vegetables to, like carrot or radish or something like that. Because each vegetable will have its own good bacteria on it. So in theory, then you'll have multiple strains, more than multiple strains, because there's millions and millions of them. But you'll have more strains of probiotics then when it's been fermented. So I love spice anyway. So kimchi is a really easy one for me to constantly gravitate to. And because I will have it on anything, on eggs, on avocado, on cooked food, on by itself. It's, if you like spice, then kimchi is a great one. But that's not for everyone. So, there are a lot of sauerkrauts out there. And like I said, some people have added extra things into them to make them a bit more interesting and have more probiotics in. But then the drinks, there are so many drinks that you can make or buy that are probiotic as well. And I make a lot of ginger beer, and that's like a real go-to for me. And with the same kind of recipe, because you use like a ginger bug to make a ginger beer, I'm making colas and juniper beers and all sorts of things. They're not alcoholic, they're just called beer because that's how they're made. But yeah, there's so many different healthy versions of soda that you can make yourself or buy as well. But I guess the main ones you find in the shops is the kombucha and the kefir as well. Kombucha can be a little bit acidic for some people, but kefir is usually nice and kind of subtle for the digestive system as well.
Yeah, I noticed we have two camps on how to pronounce it as well. So I was taught kefir, so
yeah,
that's how I say it. But kefir, I've read, is really high in not only quantity but variety of probiotics. So I do try to stick to the sugar-free versions of that, and my dog actually really loves it too. When we buy it, just like the plain sugar-free stuff, he eats it up. Or we'll get him the goat kefir. And when I would make sauerkraut, I just shred up an apple or some carrots and throw them in, and it would make such a difference, and it would be so delicious. But you don't even have to make it these days. I mean, depending on where you live, typically I can find a good variety of high quality stuff in the grocery store. I just have to what are your tips? Not everyone's able to make it themselves, so if you want to go out and buy it, what's the best way to ensure you're getting good quality stuff?
That it's unpasteurized and raw, because a lot of the stuff you'll find in the supermarkets has been cooked, so it's shelf stable, so it lasts for longer. So if it's on the shelf in the supermarket, it's probably not raw. It's probably been pasteurized. If it's being stored in the refrigerators, then it's probably raw. They will say, though, also on it, there'll be like big song and dance about it being raw and unpasteurized on the label. So if it doesn't say that, then it's been pasteurized and there's no probiotics left in it then.
Yeah, because you want those living probiotics. So we start to assume that everything out there, pickles and sauerkraut, has it, but they don't. But you're right. I find if they have the live probiotics, they're going to make sure it's advertised and go to the fridge section. And yeah. So you clearly ferment a lot of your own food. And I think this can be intimidating for people to take on. I know it was for me when I first started. It was really intimidating. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. It sounds like something I could screw up. And what if I do it wrong and I create the wrong bacteria in there? So do you have any tips for people who are just starting out?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, I was also very unwell still. And like the idea of standing in the kitchen and just chopping a big mound of cabbage or something was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that. But I got my husband to help the first first few times, because at that point back then, there wasn't really very much around. It wasn't in supermarkets and stuff like it is now. So he helped the first few times. And what I also realised was that as long as you don't add fruit to it, because that lessens the amount of time it will keep for, it will keep for over a year if it's kept cold. So what we did together was make a huge amount together, so that then it wouldn't need to be made for 6 months or something. So just got quite a few cabbages, and then he did most of the chopping and massaging, pounding bit, and I did the just stuffing in jars and the easier bits. So get a friend round and try and do it together and make a really big amount in one go. And then you don't need to worry about it for a long time then. And you've got like a good supply of really high probiotic food then.
Yeah, I found sauerkraut the least intimidating. It is a bit of work for sure. So if you're unwell, probably get some help or get someone to do it for you. But it's not a complicated process. Like some of the other ones, like kombucha and kefir, they need like scobies and starters and these things that start to be like, wow. But, sauerkraut is just, cabbage and salt. It's a very simple process, and then you just let it ferment. And it's so delicious when you make it yourself. And you make it in bulk. You've got yourself set for a while. Is there anything people should be careful of when they're fermenting?
There's something, I was trying to think then quickly of a way of saying it without going down the kind of moldy food route again. But basically, you just need to be a bit careful about the fermentation process at the beginning, because they can end up like being little bombs. So when it says in the kind of recipes for these sorts of things, you need to burp them, the first few days. Actually, what I've found over the years is you don't need to burp at all if you just leave the lid on loose. So you don't need to remember, particularly if you're tired and things like that, to go and check all your ferments and burp them all, which means let all the gas out. You can just leave a lid on loose and then just leave it to it on the side. So that would be like the main thing I would be like concerned maybe a little bit about, but you can bypass that. So, that's okay.
Yeah, I never even put lids on for mine. I don't know if there's issues with the way I was doing it, but I would just put a coffee filter on top with an elastic, and then it could just breathe, because that whole part really made me nervous. And then you have to be wary of them becoming moldy, and I used to be paranoid all the time. Is it moldy? Is it moldy? And then I realized really quickly that if it's moldy, you're gonna know. It looks like the fuzzy mold that we all know what it looks like. That happens. You'll know it's happening.
Yeah.
If people aren't already eating fermented foods, how much should they start with, and how much should they aim to eat long term?
I'm glad you asked this one. Because some people think that they've got an allergy or an intolerance to fermented foods, because when they first they read about it, and then they go out and they buy a bottle of kombucha or some sauerkraut, and they love it, and they consume a lot of it in one go, and then find themselves running off to the toilet. And it's not that there is an allergy or intolerance, it's that the fermented foods are doing exactly what they're meant to be doing, and they're detoxing you, and you've just had too much too soon. So if you think you have a digestive imbalance, or you've just recently had antibiotics or a stomach bug or something like that, then we should be starting with a really small amount and building up very slowly. Unless, of course, you want to run off to the toilet and have a proper clear out. If you find yourself, even if your stomach feels a bit bloated and gurgly, then that probably means you just had a little bit too much. So just have a little bit less next time, and then a little bit maybe with each meal, kind of break it up a little bit, maybe like a teaspoon, and then slowly build up to from there. If you are having lots of fermented foods with most meals and you don't feel anything, then great. That's absolutely fine also. But there isn't really any limit. I consume quite a lot of fermented foods, and I just really enjoy them. I love all the flavours. I love what it's doing for me. So there's no kind of upper limit, I guess. It's whatever feels good for you. But as many different varieties as possible, to get as many different probiotics as possible. And then, just a very small amount and build up. And the other thing is also thinking along the same lines is, if you're used to drinking a bottle of kombucha each day and then you switch to, say, kefir or something like that, don't assume that you could just drink a whole bottle again, because there are different strains of probiotics in there. So they'll be attacking kind of different bad bacteria in the digestive system. So again, if you switch from one to another and having a lot of it, you want to really just start with a really small amount and build up again, just in case you have this side effect of it clearing you out.
Yeah, I did not do it that way. I like everything. Like, okay, this is good. I want as much as possible. And I started eating a lot really fast. And oh my goodness, it was uncomfortable. I was so bloated. And then you think about it, it's like anything. You're putting in billions of good bacteria, even good bacteria, it's a shock to your system. It's kind of ease it in. You want to slowly change those microbiomes in your body. It's interesting too how, like you said, it can impact all different parts of your body. I initially just thought, well, I'm eating it, so it's just going to improve my digestive tract and my gut microbiome. But when I started eating fermented foods, like I'd had years of UTIs and yeast infections. And once I started eating fermented foods, those went away completely. And this was 6 or more years ago, and I haven't had one since. Like, it's incredible how it's fixed up so many different things in my body. It's an absolute game changer. There's a lot of changes we make with our health, and sometimes it's like, is this helping? Is it not? And for me, this is one of the ones where it's very clear. As soon as I started doing it, I started seeing changes. And I've never taken probiotic supplements since. Perhaps they work for some people, but I never took probiotic supplements and I'm like, oh yes, I'm seeing changes. It was just sort of this blind faith that I hope they're doing something. So yeah, I think it's if it's a good fit for you, if it's safe for you, this is just such a really good practice to have in your life.
Yeah. And not everyone will notice it straight away, particularly if, like for me, I was taking such small amounts to start with because my IBS was so bad. I also was still getting the bloating and things like that. But it took maybe a couple of months before I was like, I don't feel like that after I eat this now, or I can eat that, and it's easier. And it was really a couple of months for me before I was like, this is really making such a huge difference. So also, for people, don't give up on it straight away if the first jar doesn't make you feel loads better.
Yes, good point. For people who are watching and are curious to learn more, what sort of resources or where can they learn more about this whole process from you?
On my website, there are, I don't know how many recipes. On my blog, on my website, there are masses and masses of recipes for fermented foods and drinks and their benefits and all sorts of things like that. I've also written a book, Fermented, The Art and Obsession of Fermented Foods and Drinks. That came out last year, I think. Maybe it's the year before. Last year or the year before. But I've got some YouTube videos about it as well. But there are also masses of other people that have YouTube videos about it. There's so much information out there about fermented foods and drinks and their benefits now. I think like most people become a little bit obsessed with it, and thus want to share that information with everybody that will listen.
Sometimes I wonder when I have something like sauerkraut in the fridge. So you're saying it can last up to a year if there's no fruit in it? Because I know that those bugs need to eat and live off something. So when I have something that's been in the fridge for a few months, I think, is anything left still alive in there? So it's kind of a good rule of thumb of knowing maybe when it's time to toss it or how long these things can last.
They can last for years. Some kimchis, miso, things like that are 7, 8, 9 years old, in Asia, maybe not in our fridge. But yeah, they can last for years. There's still goodness in it. It's just that it won't taste the same. It will taste it'll be very soggy and I guess quite sour as well. It might turn more to kind of vinegar kind of way. So it's really how you prefer it. Some people like it much fresher and only a few weeks old, and some people prefer it a few months old. But it is still going to do you good if it's sat in your fridge for a year and a half. It's still going to be goodness in there. Okay,
that is good to know because that's something I've always wondered about. And you have all sorts of support available for people who are navigating health challenges and other things. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have a free program, a 30-day free program on my website to help with people, for people with chronic fatigue syndrome. I have, about 600 or 700 videos on YouTube where I share all my ponderings about health and such like. And I have quite a few books as well. And there's just lots of free resources on my website as well, just all sorts of bits and bobs.
Yeah, I really love how much free information you put out for people. There's just a wealth of stuff there. So for people watching, you can expand the video description and you'll find links to all of this. So definitely check all of that out because she's got a lot of really good stuff there, and a lot of it for free. So she's been through the journey. She's been through the nightmare of the health challenges. She gets it. She has hard-earned wisdom coming from all of this. So it's just, I think it's so great that you're putting that out there for people. And I'm so excited about fermenting and to get more back into it because it's such a good, healthy thing to have in your life and a simple thing to incorporate into your life. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to go through all this today. I and all of us watching, I'm sure, appreciate it.
It's totally my pleasure. Like I said, when you're obsessed with fermenting, you like to talk about it.
It's hard to find people to talk to about it. Like, they have like a 30-second bandwidth and then they want to move on. I'm like, tell you about my second ferment of my kombucha and the flavors that I'm adding. And it's just, you get really excited. And yeah, great store-bought stuff. You don't have to make it all. But if you do want to try and venture around and make it, it's just also just feels so incredible to be making this stuff that you've consumed and you can give it to people as gifts. And it's a really fun, healthy thing to bring into your life. So yeah, very cool. I'm very excited about fermenting as well. For those of you watching, let us know. Do you ferment? Do you eat fermented foods? What are your favorite ones? Do you make your own? What are your tips? What's been your experience? We'd love to hear it. And a massive thanks to all of you watching. I hope you're doing well. I want to send some love out to our channel member, Emerging Forward. Thank you so much for joining and supporting the channel. I hope you're enjoying the extra perks that you are getting. If you the rest of you watching are interested in learning about the channel membership program, you can click the join button below the video and learn more. So thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got tons out of it, and I hope to see you in this next one.